Right now, millions of people believe something completely insane, and they have no idea. They go to work, raise their children, pay their taxes, all while holding a belief that future generations will look back on with horror. You think you would never fall for mass delusion, but history says otherwise. Consider this: in 1692, an entire town of educated, God-fearing people watched their neighbors hang for witchcraft. In the 1930s, one of the most literate nations on Earth voted a genocidal maniac into power. And in 2003, 70% of Americans believed a lie that launched a war. Fear, conformity, delusion. These weren't stupid people. They were people exactly like you and me. So the question isn't whether mass delusion can happen. It's happening right now. The only question is whether you're inside one. Today, we're going to examine the terrifying psychology behind how entire nations lose their minds and what it reveals about the beliefs you hold this very moment. In 1841, a Scottish journalist named Charles Mackay published a book called Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. His thesis was simple and devastating. Human beings, when gathered in groups, become capable of believing things that no individual would ever accept alone. Men, it has been well said, think in herds. It will be seen that they go mad in herds, while they only recover their senses slowly and one by one. Think about that for a moment. Recovery is individual, madness is collective, and this isn't just a 19th century observation. Gustave Le Bon, the father of crowd psychology, demonstrated that when people enter a crowd mentality, their individual intelligence drops dramatically. The conscious personality vanishes and is replaced by the unconscious personality of the crowd. You've experienced this yourself. You've been in a group where everyone agreed on something, and even though something felt wrong, you stayed silent. You nodded along. You felt the magnetic pull of consensus, that warm, comfortable feeling of belonging. That warmth is the first symptom of the disease. But this raises a deeper question. What makes certain ideas so contagious that they can infect an entire civilization? Every mass delusion in history shares one ingredient: fear. Not rational fear, not the fear that makes you step back from a cliff, a deeper, more primal terror, the fear of uncertainty itself. Psychologist Ari Kruglansky calls this the need for cognitive closure. When the world becomes too complex, too chaotic, too threatening, your brain doesn't want nuance. Certainty. It wants certainty, any certainty, even a false one, and this is where it gets dangerous. During the Black Plague, Europeans couldn't understand why people were dying. The uncertainty was unbearable, so their brains manufactured an answer. The Jews were poisoning the wells. It was absurd. It was evil. And entire communities believed it because the alternative was living with not knowing. Fear plus uncertainty equals delusion. This pattern repeats with mechanical precision throughout history. Economic collapse, blame an ethnic group; social change, blame a political faction; pandemic, blame a conspiracy. The target changes. The mechanism never does. Your brain would rather accept a terrifying lie than sit with an uncomfortable unknown. If this mechanism is already making you question your own certainties, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of your psyche with me. Because what comes next goes even deeper into the machinery of delusion. In 1951, psychologist Solomon Asch conducted one of the most disturbing experiments in the history of psychology. He showed people a set of lines and asked them which ones matched. The answer was obvious. A child could see it, but there was a catch. Everyone else in the room was an actor, and they all gave the wrong answer. 75% of participants conformed to the wrong answer at least once. 75% of people denied the evidence of their own eyes rather than disagree with a group. And here's what Asch found most troubling. Many of these people didn't even realize they were conforming. They genuinely believed they saw what the group saw. Their perception itself had been altered. The tendency to conformity in our society is so strong that reasonably intelligent and well-meaning people are willing to call white black. Now multiply this by an entire nation. Imagine not just a room of 8 actors, but an entire media ecosystem, educational system, and political structure all affirming the same distortion. You wouldn't just conform, you would genuinely believe, you would defend the delusion with passion. You would think the dissenters were the crazy ones, and that brings us to the most terrifying part of this entire phenomenon. Stanley Milgram wanted to understand how ordinary Germans participated in the Holocaust. His experiment became legendary and deeply unsettling. Participants were told to administer electric shocks to another person, increasing the voltage with each wrong answer. The shocks weren't real, but the participants didn't know that. The person in the other room screamed in pain, begged them to stop, and eventually went silent. 65% of participants delivered the maximum shock, 450 volts, enough to kill. These weren't sadists, they were teachers, accountants, factory workers, ordinary people. They sweated, they trembled, they protested. But when a man in a lab coat said the experiment requires you to continue, they obeyed. Authority commands, obedience follows. Milgram concluded something that shook the world of psychology. Evil doesn't require evil people. It requires a system where ordinary people defer their moral judgment to an authority figure. The banality of evil is not a metaphor. It is a psychological mechanism. Hannah Arendt saw this in Adolf Eichmann's trial. The architect of the Holocaust wasn't a monster. He was a bureaucrat who followed orders. And this machinery of obedience doesn't just exist in laboratories and concentration camps. It operates in every institution you belong to right now. Here's where mass delusion gets truly insidious. It doesn't just change what you believe, it changes what you can see. Psychologists call this confirmation bias, but that term is far too gentle for what actually happens. Your brain actively filters out information that contradicts your existing beliefs, not metaphorically, literally. Your brain deletes evidence that threatens your worldview before you consciously process it. Neuroscientist Tali Sharot demonstrated that when people receive information that confirms their beliefs, the brain's reward centers light up. When they receive disconfirming information, the brain's threat detection systems activate. Your brain treats contradictory evidence the same way it treats a predator, as something to fight or flee from. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. Now imagine an entire nation inside the same reality tunnel. Everyone sees the same filtered version of events. Everyone's brain is deleting the same contradictory evidence. Same filter, same blindness. The people inside the delusion aren't lying. They genuinely cannot see what's obvious to everyone outside of it. This is why arguing with facts rarely breaks a mass delusion. The facts themselves are invisible to people inside the tunnel, but what builds these tunnels in the first place? Every mass delusion requires architects, people who understand the psychology of belief and weaponize it. Joseph Goebbels, Nazi Germany's propaganda minister, articulated a principle that remains devastatingly effective today. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. But Goebbels understood something even more sinister. The lie doesn't need to be convincing, it needs to be repeated. Psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. Research by Lisa Fazio at Vanderbilt University showed that mere repetition makes any statement feel more true, even when people know it's false. Repetition. Your brain confuses familiarity with truth. The more you hear something, the more real it feels. This is why propaganda works, not because people are stupid, but because human cognition has a fundamental glitch that can be exploited. 1. Repeat the message relentlessly. 2. Simplify complex issues into slogans. 3. Create an enemy to unite against. 4. Control the information environment. These 4 techniques built every totalitarian regime in history, and if you think they're relics of the 20th century, look at your social media feed. The algorithms that determine what you see operate on the exact same principles. Repetition, simplification, outrage, and information control. The medium changed, the mechanism didn't. Salem, Massachusetts, 1692. In a span of months, 20 people were executed for witchcraft. Hundreds more were accused. Families turned against each other. Children testified against their own parents. An entire community descended into collective insanity. But here's what most people miss about Salem. It wasn't irrational from the inside. The Puritans lived in genuine terror. They faced crop failures, conflicts with Native Americans, political instability, and a smallpox epidemic. Their world was falling apart, and they needed an explanation. The witch trials were not about witches, they were about the unbearable weight of uncertainty. Once the first accusation was made, a psychological cascade began. Social proof kicked in. If your neighbor believes it, maybe it's true. Confirmation bias filtered everything through the lens of witchcraft. Authority figures, the judges and ministers, validated the delusion. And most critically, anyone who questioned the accusations risked being accused themselves. This is the self-reinforcing nature of mass delusion. Dissent becomes dangerous, so silence becomes survival. And silence from the outside looks exactly like agreement. The witch hunt template hasn't disappeared, it's been updated. Every era has its witches. The accusation changes. The psychology remains identical, but this raises perhaps the most important question of all. You've been listening to this video thinking about other people, other nations, other eras. But what about you? That instinct, the certainty that you're immune to mass delusion, has a name. It's called the bias blind spot, and it might be the most dangerous cognitive bias of all. Research by Emily Pronin at Princeton found that people readily identify cognitive biases in others while believing themselves to be objective and rational. The greatest trick of cognitive bias is convincing you that you don't have any. Every person inside every mass delusion in history believed they were the rational ones. The Germans who supported the Nazi regime didn't think they were deluded. They thought they were patriots saving their nation. The accusers at Salem didn't think they were hysterical. They thought they were protecting their community. The hallmark of mass delusion is absolute certainty that you are right. So ask yourself, what beliefs do you hold with absolute certainty that cannot be questioned? What ideas, if challenged, make you feel not just disagreement but genuine anger? That anger is a signal. It's the immune system of the delusion protecting itself. The beliefs you're most certain about may be the ones most worth examining. And this brings us to an uncomfortable truth about the modern world. We are living through the largest mass psychology experiment in human history, and nobody consented to it. Social media algorithms have created something unprecedented. Personalized reality tunnels operating at a scale that Goebbels could never have imagined. Algorithm feeds your delusion. MIT researchers found that false information spreads 6 times faster than truth on social media, not because bots push it, but because human brains are wired to share content that triggers fear and outrage. The same psychological mechanisms that drove witch hunts now operate at the speed of light. Every scroll of your feed is a microdose of confirmation bias. Every recommended video deepens your reality tunnel. Every outraged comment section is a digital version of the mob at Salem. And here's the critical difference. In previous eras, mass delusions were local. They required physical proximity. Today, mass delusion operates globally instantly, and it is tailored specifically for your psychological vulnerabilities. The algorithm knows what you fear, it knows what makes you angry, and it feeds you exactly that, not because it wants to deceive you, but because engagement is profitable. Your delusion is someone's revenue stream, but there is a way out. And it starts with the most difficult thing a human being can do. The antidote to mass delusion is not intelligence. History has proven that brilliant people are just as susceptible, sometimes more so because they're better at rationalizing false beliefs. The antidote is something far more difficult than being smart. Doubt, intellectual humility, the willingness to say 3 of the most powerful words in any language, I don't know. Philosopher Bertrand Russell captured this perfectly. The fundamental cause of trouble in the world today is that the stupid are cocksure, while the intelligent are full of doubt. The people who resist mass delusion share specific traits. They tolerate uncertainty instead of rushing to false conclusions. They actively seek out information that contradicts their beliefs. They maintain relationships with people who think differently, and most importantly, they question their own certainty more than they question others. 1. Seek out views that challenge yours. 2. Ask what evidence would change your mind. 3. Distrust absolute certainty in yourself. 4. Maintain diverse social connections. 5. Question who benefits from your belief. This isn't comfortable, doubt never is, but comfort is exactly what mass delusion offers. The warm embrace of certainty, the tribal belonging of shared belief, the relief of having someone to blame. The price of sanity in an insane world is the courage to stand alone. The witch hunts of Salem ended not because the crowd suddenly became wise, but because a few individuals found the courage to say, "This is wrong, even if everyone disagrees with me." The psychology of mass delusion isn't ancient history. It's operating right now in this moment in beliefs you hold that you've never questioned. The same forces that created witch hunts, fueled genocides, and launched wars based on lies are active in your social media feed, your news sources, and your conversations. Fear, conformity, repetition, certainty. But here's what gives me hope. You watched this video. You stayed until the end. That means something inside you is willing to question, willing to doubt, willing to examine the machinery of your own mind. And that willingness, that small act of intellectual courage, is the only thing that has ever broken the spell of mass delusion. Not arguments, not evidence, not logic. Just one person willing to see clearly even when it's terrifying. If you made it this far, comment eyes open if you're ready to question your own certainties. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Welcome to the Psyche Project.